My name is Lukas Sweetwood. I'm the composer of the Strait Guys soundtrack. And yeah, we're here in my studio in Potsdam, where we did most of the work for the soundtrack recording. The first step in the soundtrack was developing George's theme and trying to figure out who he is musically and giving him a theme that would kind of change along the film, but that would be like the centerpiece of the soundtrack. And I think for me it was like this entry point of understanding, okay, maybe he's just sitting down at an instrument and playing it like an old waltz, like from back in the day, kind of sitting down, and that's where that theme came from. It's like based on this kind of waltz rhythm, like doom, and it has that kind of playfulness, but it also has a very dreamlike quality through the instrumentation with these bells and like kind of like this glass feeling of like maybe one of those old ballerina turn. I don't know how you call those, but like I think it has that dreamlike quality, but it also has that personal feeling to it. And I think that's a good way to introduce George, because that's how we saw him, at least. Scott kind of represented this kind of new fire for the project and this hope, like, okay, maybe there's a chance that we could, maybe he could still see something in his life happen with this project. Maybe there's this like a chance that this could happen, this could work out. George is like very homey and reflective and also dreamlike, where Scott is more like optimistic, and that kind of changed as far as the instrumentation goes, as it's the string pulse that's kind of like pushing forwards, and then there's these bells that come in, like the hang, that's kind of giving it new energy, and it's giving it all this youthful kind of feeling to it. The hang instrument comes from Switzerland, and it's like this metal pan that has like certain curvatures that create like resonances, and it has this really nice hang to it, where it kind of hangs, like it has this nice internal reverberation that just kind of has a dreamlike quality. It feels kind of otherworldly and dreamy, but also has this kind of earthy, rootsy feeling to it. And I think that's why it was the perfect instrument for kind of foreshadowing also the travel aspects of the film in like Alaska and like all these places, like, because Alaska, the scenery has this otherworldly feeling a lot of the times, and I think that's why that earthy kind of metallic but still organic but otherworldly sound was perfect for that kind of aspect. Once George and Scott get to Russia, we were thinking to kind of change the quality of the music to underlie that kind of changing environment, also just the different continent and that kind of paradigm. And I think we were talking a lot about making it feel more percussive and more kind of harsh, and I went back to using the hang instrument, which has that, it can be a very kind of dreamy, it can have a dreamy quality, but if it's played in a certain way, it can also feel very harsh and percussive. And I think that was why we brought in that again. But also, there's this instrument called the Nykelharpa, which is a violin that's used in like Swedish culture, and it brings in that kind of otherworldly feeling again, where it's like this harsh cellos kind of pushing in through, and then we have that percussive beat going underneath it, and then these bells that come in that kind of give it that kind of dreamy Russian quality too again. So I think that's the instrumentation as far as the hang, that Nykelharpa and these bells kind of giving it the dreamy but also harsh kind of feeling to it.
But it was worth it. It was worth it.
No dying.
So for the ending, we were trying a lot of different things. I remember we had like 4 or 5 different ideas that we were trying out, and it was all too big and it felt too large. And I think for us, I think the ending had to feel very close again and very homey again. And I think that was important. So the instrumentation had to be very small and tender, but also have a certain bittersweet quality to it that kind of opens up in the end, and like the snare comes in again, and that snare to me was always like that. Snare was like that, kind of like the train, like that snare was like that chicka 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 chicka, and I think that was kind of splattered in there along the film, and I think that's comes in the end as like that abstraction of that, yeah, just like that fascination of trains. And like every good road trip film, there's no real destination. There's just the way is the, what do you say? Das Weg ist das Ziel. Der Weg ist das Ziel. And I think that's really nice to see in that film, and I think that's what I connected with a lot during